So today we will be talking about the knowledge revolution. And of course, there's no way for me to uh, talk about all the knowledges that human have invented, but we will give some examples of the development of our human knowledge base. I will start with the first globalization, the Congress of the Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan basically has an emperor spanning almost the whole Eurasia. So that will be the first ever large contact of different cultures on a global scale in a very short time frame. So we are talking about less than 100 years. The whole Eurasia is almost connected. So it is a huge, important event. I think more research should be done on this global empire. But anyway, to the 1206, so it's quite some time ago. The Mongol receives the title of Conquest Quang, and then he captures I don't need to go into every details. I just want to mention some important points in history. So he conquered China and then expand into Poland, Iraq, etc., even Israel. So he created the first global empire, put it that way. Another important event is, of course, the visit of Marco Polo to the Far East. This is an interesting story. I know in the West, we talk a lot about Marco Polo, talking about him bringing a lot of stories back from the East. But unfortunately, in the Chinese history, we can't find him. So that's a very interesting. But anyway, this is what is supposed, the path he's supposed to have traveled from Venice.
Albert, before you continue, let me say, I've also read that Marco Polo, a lot of his stories were fibs, and he got the stories of other people.
Yeah. So in China, we don't have his information. But anyway, he do bring back a lot of very interesting information. And then this is obviously just after the Mongol Empire. That means we have then, since then, the world has been trading as a Euro-Asia trading unit, a large trading areas. So there's no record in Chinese record, Marco Polo. So maybe, as you say, he got a lot of story about China and then bring it back to Europe anyway. He is born in 2054 and etc. Now, this information will be available if you want. I will send out the handouts. So I'm not going to go into details of every slide. It's just mention that it is again a very interesting development in the world history. Now the Eurasia is almost all connected. Of course, at the moment, America is still far away. We haven't connected with America yet. He supposedly leave China in 1292, and then returned back, and then sometimes later he was captured, imprisoned, and where he dictates his story, and then that released from prison, published a book, and then eventually dies in 1324. So he has quite an old age. And then we have the Renaissance in Europe. With the contact with the East, then Europe started to have a rethinking of all the different things. So there's a Renaissance. My argument for Renaissance is a bit different from other people. Now, since the collapse of the Roman Empire, water has become not very clean. So a lot of people will get sick by drinking water. So a safer way to drink is beer. And therefore, Europeans, especially those who doesn't have to work in the field, the nobles, will be drunk almost all day, starting early with a beer, and then by evening, they are nothing. Okay, so Europe has been almost sleeping throughout until the Renaissance, when conquer Europe. Of course, he will bring a lot of new ideas and new goods into Europe. One of them would be tea. And the way to drink tea is that you have to use boiling water. Once the water gets boiled, then it is safe to drink. And then the Europeans started to have a new kind of drink instead of beer. It's a stimulating drink called tea. And then their brain started working now instead of, now that's only my theory. So we had the Renaissance. So Renaissance occurs very much just after the two large events, the Mongol Empire and the Marco Polo. That's my theory. Okay, it might not be true, but anyway. Then we have a lot of different paintings, music, agriculture, architecture, etc., all just bloom out in the 1300s. Sculptors, birth of Venus, the paints, etc. There's a whole number of things. And then now, also about that time, Europe started to have books. Now, the movable type painting was invented in 1040 in China, but it arrived in Europe by 1377. Then once you have started the printing of books, the whole knowledge economy started to develop. You no longer depends on people telling stories. You now can read from books, which is mass produced by printing. So that's also changed a lot of things. People started to realize that the world is actually a sphere. And then there are people trying to circumnavigate the sphere. We talked about the great navigation maritime journeys last few times, so we'll skip that. And then we have people who are really interested in nature, studying nature. For example, we have Galileo Galilei. Obviously, one of his most famous invention is the telescope. Telescope is not invented by Galileo Galilei. He heard that somebody has created a telescope by polishing two pieces of glass. Then he do it himself, and then he started looking into the stars, and then discovered that the Earth is not at the center of the universe. Actually, we are revolving around the sun, and then etc. etc. Of course, his theory was objected by the church, and he was put into what's that? Home arrest, put it that way, and he escaped being put onto a stick. So he's quite lucky. And then comes the steam engine. That the steam engine marks another important human endeavor. With steam engine, we are now able to harness energy outside of our own power and animal power. We are now able to obtain energy from coal, from fossil fuels. This changed everything. Suddenly, humans' control of energy increased by order of magnitudes. Instead of just maximum power we have is a number of cows or horses pulling a carriage. Now we can have much more energy. It's the invention of steam engine. Of course, just like any invention, it is not a straightforward invention. You have many intermediate steps. Like we first have a steam pump, and then improve it into a atmospheric engine, and then eventually James Watts invented the first usable steam engine, and then from there onwards, we are not able to harness energy other than from our own or from animal. So that's changed everything as well. Then come Isaac Newton. His Principle Mathematica basically explained the universal laws of motion and gravity. And obviously, most of the secondary students who study physics, basically almost 2/3 of their subject matter is from Isaac Newton. So he is a very important people helping us to understand the working of nature. Another big invention is now with the steam engine, now we are able to produce machines. Our first large-scale machine is actually applied to a textile. Initially, they invented the flying shuttle, and then a spinning jenny, and then the water flame, and eventually there's a spinning mill, and then power boom, etc. And suddenly, we are now seeing the start of the industrial era. So with steam engine, with inventions coming first in terms of textile and with printing, now we have the Industrial Revolution started. On the other hand, we also have the medical revolution started in about 1796. So we understand that, okay, we can create the first vaccine. With the first vaccine, and then later on the anesthetic surgery. That means we can operate on people without feeling the pain, which changes everything. So the important changes starting to develop. Also, we now have the germ theory of the disease. Of course, today we know that disease can be made out of germs, fungi, or virus. So there are different types of disease, etc. And then we also started to understand the reason why our body doesn't feel well comes from both external influence like germs or virus, or internally because of mutation, our body develop cancer and so forth. So the medical revolution come along. Then we have the rail transport system. Now, rail transport system was initially developed for taking the coal out from the coal mines. So as steam engine and coal come together, quite interesting. Initially, people take the coal out for heating the rooms, but the coal mines will have a lot of water, so they need to pump the water out. So one of the application of steam engine at the very beginning is water pumps, pumping the water out from the coal mines. At the second requirement of the coal mines is you need to get the coal out of the mine. So initially they were pulling that coal out by hand, and then later on they used horses carriage. But somebody discovered that you have a very hard wheel on a hard wheel. So that comes the rail transport. They put a metal pipe, metal bar, and then the wheels rolling on the metal bars. That save a lot of frictional energy, and therefore it started with the rail transport. The rail transport initially was used for taking the coal out of the coal mines. Later on, with steam engine, they have the steam locomotives, and then they have the railway company started, and then people are now able to move to different places relatively easier than before. Before that, the most you can do is riding on a horse, but now you have a much more comfortable transportation. So there are several different designs, and in 1825, the first public steam railway started operating, and then the rest is just moving on, and then more and more trains are developed. Another important development is telegraph. So in 1832, somebody already created the first electromagnetic telegraph, and then eventually that developed, and then by 1840, the American Alfred Wells improves on the Morse code, and of course, then after that we have started to have the news agencies. The news agencies, the idea of them is that people are interested in news around the world, and with telegram, that means you can transfer information from one place to the other place. But using telegram is very expensive. At those times, we don't have radio yet, so they have to lay a under seabed cable in order to carry the telegrams across. So the first transatlantic underwater, under the sea cable was laid there, and that becomes very expensive. And therefore, news agencies started to develop. For example, a new agency in America will report all the news from America and send it over to England, to Britain. Britain also collects all the information and send it over to America, and so on. And so is between Europe and everything else. So these news agencies started to monopolize. They say, okay, if you want to report on news, you can use the news feed I give you, but you also give me news feed so that I can produce newspapers. And this new agency themselves do not produce the newspaper itself. It just provide the information, and different newspapers will be able to buy the news from this new agency and then distribute the news out. So we have now monopoly of news because of this telegraph at the very beginning. So today we also look, where we have news, we will say the Reuters, or the AP News, Associated Press, we quote which news agency provided the news is still the same, but that started with this telegram. Then Charles Darwin published his book on the origin of a species. Now notice, it is not the origins of life, it is origins of species. So he assumes that life had already started. He only talked about how life changes over time. That is the evolution concept. And he provided a mechanism to explain the biological evolution. And then later on comes the invention of radio. With radio, and then the communication becomes much more diverse, because telegram is very limited to long short signals. Once you go in the radio, you can now hear the real sound. This is Edison. Thomas Edison invented the first electric wireless communication for use between ships at sea. So we know Edison is a very prolific inventor. He invents quite a number of things. One of them is radio. At that time, all the ships have a radio operator who will sit around the radio listening for different kinds of information, transmitting information. So it is very much a 24/7 work to maintain communications using radio. Then people improve on the receiving device, and then improve on the lighting, etc., etc. So we now have radios all over the world. They're still talking about radio, okay, radio, and then by 1898, Tesla, not the car company, it's the Persian Tesla, demonstrates a remote controlled boat by using radios. So when we talk about remote control, it's actually quite a long time ago. And another breakthrough is from physics, the discovery of radioactivity. Obviously, that involves a number of persons, such as Madame Marie Curie. She has got 2 Nobel Prizes, one in chemistry and another in physics, all related to radioactivity. But with X-ray, now we have another way to look at our own body. And then that also improves on the medical diagnosis. Today we have MRI, etc., or originate from the ideas of using another kind of electromagnetic waves to pass through the body in order to look at what's happening in your body. In terms of transportation, we also have the heavier than air aircraft. Before that, we have airships with a big balloon and then carry forward. At that time, the balloon is filled with hydrogen. Hydrogen is very reactive with oxygen. So a small spark may ignite the hydrogen, and then the whole airship will be on fire and then blow away. So heavier than air aircraft was a great invention. Then come my idol, Albert Einstein. In 1905, in 1 year, he publishes 4 important papers on almost 4 different fields. The first is photoelectric effect, which he got a Nobel Prize for. And then the second is Barnsian movement. And then the third is the special theory of relativity. And the last one is the equations of mass and energy, E equals to mc squared, which help us to invent the new atomic bomb. So that is a very important year. At that time, Albert Einstein is still working as a clerk in the Swiss patent office. Then come television. Television is almost 100 years old. Early televisions is from US, Scotland, US, Japan, USSR, etc. Then we have, and then comes the digital revolution. Digital revolution means the creation of a computer. The most important thing is the mathematical. I haven't put in the mathematical idea, the tuner's machine. But anyway, and then we also have the DNA. DNA is only discovered in 1953, and this describes our how our genetic information is carried from one generation to the other generation. And in 1957, Russia put up the first artificial or man-made satellites, and that started the space race between USSR and United States. It is a shiny alloy ball, weighs 184 pounds, etc., etc. So it continued to circle the globe until January 1958, and then it crashed. Then by 1960s, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approves the first contraceptive pill, and that revolutionized human birth. And with that, we also liberate the women from housebound, and the women are able now to work on equal terms with the men. Obviously, it still takes a number of years before equal work, equal pay. By 1969, American was able to put somebody on moon. So that was Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. So that is the first time human landed on an area outside of Earth. Then come the internet. Internet was invented out of the need of continuous communication in the case of a conflict. Now, previously we had radios. Radios, that means if you are transmitting a radios from one end to other end, depending on your wavelength, you have to have radio transmission stations. Another way to transfer it is using telegraph. Telegraph is a bit more secure than radio because everybody can listen to your radio. Telegraph is point to point. But if one of your transmission center is destroyed, then your whole communication is broken. So the American defense started to ask the question, is there a way for us to maintain communication even if some of these crucial points or links are broken? So they invented what we call packaged communication. We break up the whole message into different packages and then send the packages through different paths and then reassemble the message back from different packages. If a package is missing, we can ask the package to be retransmitted again. So by having the packages moving through a network rather than a trunk, we can secure messages. Also, that's the start of the internet. With the start of internet, then there are different protocols coming up. These are technical, but anyway, with the parallel protocol, and then they have different standards. X25, the X25 standard is one of the standards I used in my master degree studies. Later on, by 1989, this guy, Tim Berners-Lee, invented the World Wide Web.
Gosh, goodness.
And then it changed everything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the smartphone.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Hi, welcome to another Cold Fusion video. Looking through all of history, it would seem that the mobile phone has caused the most rapid changes in daily life ever seen. Phones have altered our expectations of what's possible and even our mental process. Now we expect to have all things with us at all times in our pockets. The entire world is at our fingertips, instantly. We even tend to perceive time in such a way where a few seconds is an eternity. If a phone takes more than a few seconds to boot up and snap the perfect shot, that's just not good enough. We are able to read, watch, listen to, consume, and sometimes even create from anywhere at any time. What I've just described is the smartphone revolution, and it's only a decade old. Before the smartphone, in the 2000s and 90s, phones were a lot less than this. They just made phone calls, had a basic organizer, and in latter years, a modest camera and very basic internet if you were lucky. But go back into the 1980s, and mobile phones just did one thing: make phone calls. But the question is, what was the first one of these primitive phones that just made phone calls? What was the original phone that would become the grandfather to all the billions of phones in our pockets? Where did it come from? Who invented it? And what's the story behind it? In this video, we'll take a look. This video is brought to you by Squarespace, one of the easiest ways to make a website. I'm building a Cold Fusion website now, and if you have a suggestion for what you would like to see on the website, let me know below. If you want to make your own website, go to squarespace.com/coldfusion to get 10% off your first purchase. To start the story of the first mobile phone, we have to go back to the 1960s. Technically, at this time, mobile phones did exist, but only in cars. And if you had one, you were the boss of the town, a real high flyer. As it turns out, since the 1940s, car phones had enjoyed limited use in large cities of the United States. Putting a phone in a vehicle was the only way to make them mobile. This is because the phones took so much power to run that only car batteries could supply it. Another drawback was that for a given area, only 12 channels existed, so most of the time you would have to wait to use a network. Just to connect to a call could take 30 minutes. That's just the way it was, and the way it always will be. Until 1968, that is. In this year, the Federal Communications Commission asked AT&T to fix this issue. AT&T then came up with a cellular architecture. Its aim was to break up the large areas of coverage into smaller ones so that multiple people could use their phones in their cars at the same time.
Regular mobile systems use a central high-power transmitter to serve an entire city. But this way, only one telephone call can be handled on a radio voice path at one time. AMPS makes many more radio channels available at one time to many more customers by using a number of low-power transmitters. Each transmitter is the heart of its own separate area or cell. As a vehicle drives from one cell to another, advanced electronic equipment at a central location called a mobile telephone switching office automatically transfers the call by telephone line to another cell without the caller knowing it.
If I didn't have my phone, it would be a disaster. I don't know what I'd do, really. I'd be back to coming off the tollways looking for a phone, customers yelling, screaming, "Where are you? Why haven't you called? Why don't you care?"
Around the same time, Motorola had a car phone division and didn't want AT&T to have a monopoly on products that could take advantage of this new system. Motorola feared that this would be the end of their mobile business if they didn't do anything, so they decided to develop a phone to utilize this new cell technology and asked a man by the name of Martin Cooper to spearhead the project. In 1972, he got started. The thing was, there was a lot of risk here because at the time, Motorola didn't really have the capital to absorb any failures. If they spent a whole bunch of money on this project and it failed, it could spell the end for Motorola. AT&T, on the other hand, were giants. They could throw as much money as they wanted without worrying. It was David versus Goliath. One day, while thinking about this problem, Martin Cooper recorded a comic strip called Dick Tracy. It usually involves the main character talking into a mobile wristwatch. Here's an ad from the 1960s depicting a toy version of the watch.
Tracy to kids. Come in, kids. It's here at last, the new Dick Tracy two-way wrist radio that keeps you in constant touch with your buddies. Broadcast from room to room and even house to house. No wires needed, yet voices travel back and forth. Radio on the open road from one bike to another, or when out hiking.
This gave Martin an idea, and he began to think about the problem differently. Why assign a number to a desk, a home, a building, a car, or even a place at all? Why not assign it to a person? You could be connected wherever you are to whoever you wanted. This was a revolutionary idea. With this thought, Cooper defied the industry's narrow vision of car phones and went for the idea of a personal, portable form of communication. Now that he had the vision, all he had to do was set his team up to build it. But could this even be done? Nobody knew. Martin was banking on a brand new technology that could make this vision a reality, the microprocessor. It was a tiny chip that could do the same thing as many car phone components with much less space and much less power consumption. Surprisingly, by March of '73, Cooper and his team had a working prototype. On April 3rd, 1973, Martin introduced the Dynatac phone at a press conference in New York City. To make sure that his phone actually worked before the press conference, he decided to place the very first public cell phone call. He decided to call an engineer called Joel Engel. He was the head of AT&T's rival project. So Martin simply called Joel just to tell them that he'd beaten them to the mobile phone.
In that first call, we didn't know it was going to be historic in any way at all. We were only worried about one thing. Is the phone going to work when we turn it on? Fortunately, it did.
In 1983, after years of development, Motorola introduced the first portable cell phone to consumers. It was the Dynatac 8000X. It almost weighed 1 kilogram and was absolutely huge because it needed so much battery to power it. Despite all of that battery, a full charge took roughly 10 hours and it offered only 30 minutes of talk time. And to top it all off, its price was almost $10,000 adjusted for inflation. So when you hear all of that, you're probably thinking that this mobile phone product was a failure. Well, actually, far from it. As it turns out, the value of talking anywhere at any time made the cost worth it. And the phone eventually became a success, kicking off the mobile phone revolution. When Martin made the first mobile phone call back in 1973, there was only one real cell phone. Now, there are more mobile phones than people. So what's Martin up to today? At age 88, he sits on committees supporting the Federal Communications Commission and the United States Department of Commerce. So that's the story of who invented the very first mobile phone. I say good on Martin for taking the risk and thinking outside the box. He literally changed the world and all of our lives. Anyway, that was just a quick little piece of history. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so from smartphone, we have new things every day. And then this will be the last slide, but this is the other way around. And in this particular video, we are using modern technology, artificial intelligence, the latest, to colorize video, motion pictures taken in 1890s. So it's almost 130 years ago. The cities around the world in color, present to you by artificial intelligence. This is Jerusalem. Bohemia. Livorno, Italy. Moscow. Tokyo. is in Melbourne, Australia.
I'm trying to be more good.
Okay, I will stop here. And then we can have some discussion.
Albert, I missed the connection between artificial intelligence and cities around the world.
Because at that time, we don't have color movies.
Yeah. Oh, I
They
see.
are black and white. And it is using artificial intelligence to restore the color.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. They were
So
very
it
videos.
all the way wrong. Okay, any question? A very fast movement. Probably I will miss out some important inventions you may consider. For example, the semiconductors is very important as well. I missed it out.
But I think artificial intelligence is going to make it already has, and it's continue to make such a profound impact on our lives. And that I think you mentioned Yuval Harari before. He wrote that book, 21 Lessons of the 21st Century as well. And he talks about this. And, I worked in artificial intelligence in my research as well. So actually, it's quite frightening what is happening and what might happen.
The other combination of is, of course, artificial intelligence depends on computing power. And then you also couple with fast communication. The internet is faster and faster every day. Then it opens up a whole new possibilities which we have never seen before. Another thing I think I have missed is also the global positioning system, GPS. So knowing where you are, very quickly communicating with some central large computer, and then with computing power utilized using artificial intelligence, the world is going to change very quickly in the next 10 or 20 years. So, and we are now talking about 5G in China. They are installing 5G station in most cities, and 6G is coming, and the 6G's discussion and patents are almost locked in, and therefore we will be seeing 6G's probably in 5 years' time, and then that will change the communication again significantly. At the moment, 5G depends on local towers, communication towers. 6G will incorporate it into satellites, so that we will be connected at very high speed everywhere on Earth, with no exception. So that is going to change everything. And the other thing is, of course, the cars. The the driverless cars is also coming.
No, I'll be fine.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for your help. Thank you.
So
Yes.
I guess it's not quite inventions, but just the work itself by humans. If what I read is right, will lead to well, maybe more leisure time, but maybe not. But we do hear that a lot of the work that is undertaken now will be in the future undertaken by
robots and artificial intelligence.
That's right. So,
but we have predicted human work to be less, at least a century ago, when we have industrial revolution. We were saying, okay, we have industrial revolution. We are making so many things so quickly. We don't need to work so hard. But it turns out we are working harder than ever before.
Yes, yes.
So whether artificial intelligence plus the availability of energy will change that, we don't know. But I do hope that's because after all, what is driving us is energy. With energy, then a lot of problems can be solved. For example, even for lack of water. We are not lack of water, we are only lack of fresh water. So when we realize this, then we will the question can change to when there's lack of water, we can use desalination. We know desalination is energy intensive, but if energy is very cheap, say an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude cheaper, then suddenly lack of water is no longer lack of water. We can do and of course the next question, how can we get our energy system, the cost to decrease by order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude? Well, that depends on solar panels, renewable energy. Once we have renewable energy, the renewable energy is that means we don't have to have further input. It will produce energy. At the moment, we are only needing to build the infrastructure to provide the renewable energy. That means at the moment we need inputs, we need cost. But once you have the solar panel, it works for 10 years, 20 years, and then you just are continuously maintaining them. And obviously, the next generation of solar panel will be more efficient than the current generations. So as you started to replace your solar panels, your energy price would started to decrease.
But so, the point that Ken made before, Albert, about that's the point that Harari is also making. But the economic model that we have, the capitalist model, companies are going to want to increase their profits. So basically, as you keep on, so there is the push to remove humans and technology to do this work. So I don't see, as it keeps progressing with AI and robotics, less and less work will be done by the humans because they will use technology to do it. So I don't see, I think that's the point that he and a lot of others are making, is that there'll be a lot of people with not much to do. And that's going to have social implications because and the power will be concentrated in a few hands.
I think that is another issue is our current political system is able to survive into the future. Because at the moment, our political system is basically so-called using election to elect the highest office. But the highest office themselves are basically captive of the interest groups because they need funding to get elected. And therefore, it's still capital driven. And therefore, what is actually controlling our society these days is actually large capitalists, the last capital that's controlling us. But if we can change that political system, then the world can change. One of the issues is that China is experimenting on a different political system. Whether you like it or not, Chinese political system is very different from our political system in the West. China's election is only on the lowest level. For example, in our case here in Australia, our election will be electing the representative for our street. That's it. And then in our little suburb, then all these representative of the streets will elect the representative for our little suburb. And those representing our suburbs will elect the leaders in, for example, our city, and then from the city up into our state, and then only the parliament members of our state will be able to elect federal. So we don't have a separate election for federal. So that is the Chinese system. Chinese system is one level electing the next level up, and then this level elect those another level up, and then there it goes. So,
but Albert, if you look at the Scandinavian countries, right? If you look at Norway or Sweden or Denmark, they are democratic system. They got very good leaders, and the governments they of course they tax very highly, but they provide the people with a social net, and they provide a lot of services to the people.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are governments in the West, and Finland and Iceland and so on, that are quite effective democratic systems, which don't have the people that you're talking about.
Yes, the other issue is actually bring this socialist idea into our society. We are willing to pay more tax for a stronger social net. One of the issues I say, for example, for our medical system, I would say if our medical system is a one system instead of two-tier system. Now, at the moment, we can have a private healthcare. So those who have money have a private healthcare, and then they jump onto the queue much earlier. But if you have only one system, no private insurance, even the politicians will have to stand in the queue like everybody else. The queue depends on your medical needs. Then there will be money pumping into the medical system. One of the issues, for example, in the American medical system is the middleman making too much money, the insurance company.
Yeah.
And their medical bill is just horrendous. But so again, this is related to the political system. If we can adopt a more socialist system, then we will say, okay, everybody will have a essential income. For example, another is now a lot of us still living into our little suburb areas with our private homes. The front garden, most of us is a lawn, which is completely wasteful. What if everybody change the front lawn into a productive vegetable gardens, and then the whole street share your front lawn produce, and then we will make the supermarket change quite differently. Or another way of thinking is the supermarket will take in the produce from each individual household, package it, and then sell it. And then at the end of the day, you come back to the supermarket and say how many of my produce have been sold. And then you collect the money. And then obviously you also pay money for buying some other people's produce. that will change the whole economic system.
It's almost like the Amish model with high tech, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, well, RACV is the same model, isn't it? It is a number of people buying insurance, and then the people buying insurance is also the one who's right. But the another issue is we have to make sure that the managers do not take up the most of the profit. The profit have to go back to the individuals. That will make you have the now. Once you have this system in place, I think we can solve about 80% of our needs locally. Energy from renewable energy, with renewable energy, with our front garden being a veggie patch. You are selling your veggies, and then with your money coming from your sale, you buy other people's veggie, for example. Then we solve about 60% of the food problem. And then, of course, we still have large farms. Maybe we will start having ships in the lawn, and then the ships will go around doing the mowing for you. And then you will produce milk to sell.
Yes, that's a good idea. They've actually got a business going with goats, and you can get goats to come and clear your property. Yes.
Yes. Send a feed of goats to clean your property for you.
So sorry, did you say you have a business with goats?
No, not us, but we've been to places where they've got very attractive goats, most attractive goats, and they clear up the property, eat the weeds, and then the businessman just takes the goats to the next property.
Yeah, just like the beekeepers. The beekeepers are moving around chasing the flowers, and then also doing the pollination for the fields. Yeah, a similar, and in Vietnam they have ducks as well. The ducks are sent to the rice paddies for cleaning up the pests, and then fertilizing, and then the ducks move from one paddy to the next paddy, just like the beekeepers.
Yes. The farmers market works on a system similar to what you're.
Similar to this one, yes. Okay, now I will share the screen once again and show you what will be happening next year, because I decided I'm not going to run the course continuously every week. So thank you very much for all your support in the past years. Next year, I want to focus on my YouTube channels, and this is my YouTube channel. I hope I will be posting at least one video on big history next year.
Oh, lovely.
So will you send this? Will you send this to us so that we know what it is?
Yeah, I will send my channel to the email system, and then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then I will try to put up at least one video a week.
Oh,
wow,
that's good. We've never subscribed to any YouTube channel.
You start subscribing to me as the first
And Albert, I'd like to thank you very much for all the effort you've put in and for some very interesting lectures. It's been given us a lot to think about, and we're very grateful to you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me
Okay,
those
next
words.
year
Thank
we
you
will
very much.
see you on YouTube, and then obviously you can leave me messages on YouTube, and then I will try to respond to it as much as I possibly can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I hope I will start doing that about early next year, because at the moment my renovation here is still ongoing. I need to finish the renovation, and then I have my own studio.
Oh.
I will be able to make better movies, and then I will start posting it. Possibly, I hope I can maintain one video on big history, one video on China Today every week.
Thank you very much.
And then thank you, and then you can subscribe to my channel, and then we can have a discussion on there instead of something like this for next year. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
And
all the
Kim,
best
thank
to
you.
you. Thank you.
Nice meeting
Bye.
you as well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.